It's time for Refresh the Cache, the Dynamics 365 Portals podcast on the CRM Audio Network, with your hosts, Microsoft MVPs, Nick Doelman, Colin Vermander, and Sean Tabor.
Maplytics by Inogic is a market-leading certified for Microsoft Dynamics 365 geo-analytical mapping app. Maplytics empowers users with powerful map visualization and routing capabilities with a dynamic CRM to drive better sales, improve business processes, and engage the right customers at the right time. Inogic is a leading Microsoft Gold Dynamics CRM ISV, delivering best-in-class Dynamics 365 solutions as well as cost-effective and high-quality programming services.
All right, welcome everybody to Refresh the Cache, episode 4. And finally, Colin and I are together again,
Back
recording
together.
this.
Yeah.
But in the process, we lost a hobbit somewhere.
Oh no.
I think he
Got stuck in some sort of city.
I believe he's on assignment, but from what I understand, he's in a snowstorm somewhere in the Midwest. So hopefully, like all good hobbits, he will make his way back to the Shire with us, very soon. So, anyways, I think Colin and I we're an all Canadian show today, so I think we can handle this.
Which is going to be really nice.
Cool. But I guess both of us, because we haven't been together on the show, we've been traveling a little bit. So, yeah. Just maybe we'll kind of go down what you've been doing for the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you had the first trip, I guess, a while ago at CRM UG that I could not make, the summit there. So how was that show?
Yeah, Phoenix, CRM Phoenix. It was really good. Definitely a good crowd. One of my favorite conferences, just because you're dealing with the folks that are doing Dynamics 365 stuff in the real world versus the Microsoft, here's what's coming kind of thing, which is also great. And even that said, the keynote by James Phillips was really good, showing, a lot of the stuff Microsoft is working on. And even, in terms of what we're going to talk about, portals and things like that, even though portals wasn't the forefront, they're looking at HoloLens and things like that. Portals was actually mentioned kind of briefly in some of the sessions about what's coming and things like that. And I think no surprises to anybody, to us. I think a lot of the same stuff that you and Dilip had talked about a couple weeks prior to that in Ignite. So
yeah,
exciting stuff there. So it was good. I did 2 sessions on portals. One was kind of a crash course on portals, kind of walking through folks just to how to kind of dive in, set up a very simple portal to show invoices. So I think that was pretty well received. A lot of people got a lot out of that, and I was also able to show them some of the new stuff as well. And I think there was a bit of excitement there. And then I did one a little bit more advanced, like on Liquid and things like that, and also a packed house of really, really smart, savvy people already working with Dynamics. So I'm glad that really helped them out, kind of get to that. Hopefully, it gets them to the kind of the next level and solve a few problems.
Yeah, you had good attendance at both, I imagine.
Both. Oh, I had 3 other sessions, which another one was on SSRS, which we won't talk about here. Maybe someday we'll have an SSRS podcast.
Maybe a Power BI one.
Yeah, exactly. So no, yeah, all sessions were good. Definitely good feedback from everybody. Some good things I know to change for next time. This is what I like about these things. The feedback kind of helps you learn and grow as a presenter.
Yeah,
it was really good. And then, after Phoenix, I think both of us attended different Dynamics 365 Friday/Saturdays. Do you want to talk about? I think you were in Seattle, right? You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I did make the journey out to Seattle for a single day and then all the way back. But it was definitely worth it. It was a pretty awesome crowd there. Julie Yak had worked to organize it, and we actually had the chance to have it actually at the Microsoft Redmond campus. So we were at Advanta B building, and ended up having a lot of Microsoft staff also attending it. So that was a little nerve-wracking, but also pretty cool in terms of giving sessions in front of them. Apparently, Charles had sent out an email the day before to his whole team telling them to register, and we ended up with quite the waiting list of people as a result. So I actually wasn't presenting portals there. I was actually presenting ALM practices for CDS. So But at the end of my session, I had a lot of people coming up to me asking about portals. So I ended up talking about portals in person with a lot of people, and actually with some of the Microsoft people there that were implementing portals internally for themselves, and some of the techniques that they were using, and some tips and tricks that might help them with all of that. It was an interesting one because it was on a Friday. So the event's normally called Dynamics 365 Saturdays, but because we were doing it at Microsoft, we wanted to have it during the weekday so we could use that space and hopefully get a good set of attendees both externally and internally. So it was a little different. I think you ran one on a Saturday, but across the pond.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. No, it's great to hear that Microsoft is using portals internally. I've always been a big fan of eating your own dog food, and the fact that Microsoft is using portals for some of their internal stuff is great to hear. And hopefully that just kind of helps drive.
They're running into all the same struggles as I think most of us do as well. So, I think we had a lot of good feedback and had some good discussions with the team there, the product team that was there as well. So. They're well aware, I think, of all of the troubles that we have and that they are also having themselves. So
cool. No, and that's nice because I think there's nothing that's not fixable going forward. So having Microsoft in there running into the same challenges that we are in the field will just definitely help things. Because if they want something, they're a little bit closer to the fire to get it done. So it's just going to help us.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I attended Dynamics 365 Saturday across the pond in Stockholm, Sweden. It was really cool. First time I'd ever been to Stockholm. It worked out. I was on a trip already to Norway, ironically delivering a session delivering training on portals. And so they said, well, if you're in Norway, we're literally just a very short train ride away, so you definitely should show up. So I did, and it was great. Definitely good crowd. People very keen on things. I did a few sessions there. I did the same session they had done at CRM UG Summit about I call it the crash course on portals, and it was kind of funny. One of the attendees who was actually at a Dynamics 365 Saturday in Washington D.C. that was in September, where I had also done this session. Now, so here's an industry secret that our audience might be interested in. A lot of these sessions that you see will actually repeat in different venues like CRM UG Summit or Dynamics 365 Saturday. So if you happen to miss a particular session at a particular event, chances are we as the MVPs will run it again somewhere else.
Yeah, slightly changed perhaps based upon the feedback we get, but usually a fair amount of similar content.
So I gave this presentation, and one of the attendees was actually at the session, the Dynamics 365 in Washington, and came up to me later, and he said, I was sitting in your session, and then I realized, wait a minute, I think I've seen this session before, and then he goes, wait, that's the same presenter as before too, so that was pretty interesting. But definitely it was definitely a good crowd. Like I said, I did that session on portals. I did a couple other ones. Definitely an interest in portals across worldwide now, because with all the different geos and things like that, portals are available. I think they've always have been. Definitely a lot of interesting portal projects that people are planning and moving forward there as well. The folks, it was Gustav Westerlund and Jonas Rapp were the MVPs in Stockholm organizing the event, and their teams as well. They did an amazing job with the venue was at Microsoft. So if you haven't checked out a Dynamics 365 Saturday, I think it's the website's D365 Saturday or something like that. You'll be able to Bing it or Google it or however, and check one. There is a very good chance that one is coming to a city close to where you are, and usually they're on Saturdays. They might be on a Friday, but these events are free and they're great learning opportunities if you want to check those events. And then the last event I want to talk about is in Canada here, and I know we have a few Canadians listening along with us. Collaborate Canada, And I was at Montreal earlier this week. I'm doing the same portal session, but I also there's another session by Salim Adamon, who's a former MVP, but definitely still very active in the community, and he did one on Azure B2C authentication on portals, which was really well done. So, Colin, have you gone to any of the Collaborate Canada's events yet, or are you going?
I haven't. I've been a little bit under the weather, but I will be attending the Ottawa one. I believe that's on the 27th of November.
Right.
So, and then there's the Toronto one next week. I think you're speaking at the Toronto one as well, or
I'm speaking at the Ottawa one.
the Ottawa one. Okay.
There was a bit of confusion there, and they thought I was being in Toronto, but I wasn't. So we've got that all sorted out. And once again, thanks Daniel Kai to the rescue on that particular situation.
Nice. So I know one of the people I work with, Robert Bailey, is going to be giving a portals management session at the Toronto Collaborate Canada, as well as at Ottawa. So I think that would be a really good session to attend. He's a functional consultant with KPMG and kind of give more of a business angle to portals than maybe a technical that myself or Nick might have given in the past. So it'd be a little bit of a different session, I think, but should be a good one.
Cool. No, I'll be at the Ottawa one. I'll check that out. It's funny, Robert Bailey, he was the instructor when I first learned portals 5 or 6 years ago in my session.
Yeah, Robert was originally part of the ADX Studio product team and was kind of the head trainer for the product team, or played that role along with many others for them way back then.
Cool. So just moving forward, we talk about Collaborate Canada coming up. One more conference that's coming, Extreme 365 in Austin, Texas. And I believe, Colin, you're going to be presenting and also doing some actual portals training there as well.
Yeah, I think Extreme is first week of December in Austin, as you said, and I won't be giving a portal session, but I will be doing portals training for the day on the Thursday, which I think is the 6th. So if you're interested in that, then you can head over to the Extreme site to kind of find out some more information. But I think it's a one-day course, so we'll be running through a bunch of things, kind of deciding what to go through exactly depending on the attendees and what they're interested in as part of all of that. So I think you're doing some exam prep courses.
Yeah,
there
nothing
as well,
nothing to do with portals, but yeah, if you're cramming to get those the exams, there's actually some. I believe though the exam cram training is free for attendees, but you have to pre-register for it. So if you need to get I'm actually doing the training on the customization and config, but I also know that there's sessions for online deployment and also sales and service, and they're all being delivered by MVPs. I believe Gus, Sheila, Britta, and then even some F&O exam training and things like that. So I would suggest if you know the product very well, but you want to prep for the exam, it's a good opportunity to kind of get that knowledge in your head. So, and then also, of course, if you want to learn about portals, there's Colin's. And then I also believe that, yeah, you're right. I'm not doing a session on portals either, but Nicholas Hayduke, who was actually one of the guests on our last episode from Serum UG Summit, he and Nikita Polikov, who I think that we're trying to get on the podcast at some point, they're doing a combined session or sessions on portals. So there's definitely some portal content at Extreme and part of the regular conference as well.
Yeah, I think they're going to talk about a lot of the new features and go over implementing them that have been released this October. So it should be a pretty good session. And I'm hopeful that, yeah, we can record a session with Nikita while we're there in Austin together. I think even the Hobbit might be in the venue, or at least we can get him virtually to perhaps help us. So,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then in terms of, it's funny because we talk about portals training, and I ran a portals class in Oslo, and incidentally, I just finalized this morning, so I can kind of publicly announce it now. We're going to be doing the course again, but this time in the United Kingdom, in Stansted, which I believe is a town not far out of London. So it's not in London proper, but it's just outside. So if you're in the UK and you're a Dynamics 365 person and you are finding yourself involved in a portals project and want to learn more, we'll put it in the show notes, the link to that. But definitely there's an opportunity that I can hopefully help you out with training as well to get you kind of ramped up on portals. But it's interesting, Colin, I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, and as do I, from folks that maybe are strong Dynamics 365 people already, but where do you learn, like where can they learn about portals? Where can they learn more? How can they get ramped up? And we just talked about a couple of classes coming up, but what are some other resources, and how do you answer that question?
Yeah, I definitely get asked this a lot, especially when at conferences and people don't have a lot of time in person. So I think it's been pretty amazing to watch the documentation change over the years. The documentation that now exists for portals on the Docs Microsoft site is amazing. When we started 2 years ago, when they had just acquired the Portals product, the answer would have been go to the old ADX Studio community site, because that was actually the better resource for things. But Microsoft has done a pretty incredible job in transposing, as well as creating a whole bunch of new content over to that Docs Microsoft site, and it's kept up to date basically monthly as they release new features. You can even find stuff as terms of what's coming in the next release. They often have the documentation ahead available. I think the new features that they released this October, they had the documentation up there for both SharePoint and Power BI even before the features were actually publicly available. So you could get a lot of insights and kind of plan out your deployments or your feature use as part of that. The other great place is the community.dynamics.com site. There's a section in the forums there that people use for portals, and there's been a lot of questions and answers to portal items in there over the years, and I think there's a lot of relevant content, even if it's 2 or 3 years old, to the portal use today. So a lot of hard technical questions have been asked in there and answered. So I think both Nick and I have contributed, along with a bunch of others. I know I've asked questions in there that I didn't know and gotten them answered by others. So I think that's a very helpful resource. I don't know, what else are you using?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the community site, and it was... you'll find, I haven't been as active as I should have been lately in terms of answering questions, but I promise I want to get back into that more, because I find I learn as well. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting, the community site, I ran into an issue the other day on portals, and I'm kind of like, okay, is this something that just doesn't work? Because there was a bit of some legacy functionality from the old ADX. I'm like, is this something that actually doesn't work in the new one? But I thought, hold on, I thought I knew the answer to this. So I know, Colin, I fired an email off to you, and then in the meantime, I went and started searching, and then lo and behold, I found the answer on the community site. I said, oh, this is awesome. And I just kind of scrolled down, found the answer, and found that I had answered that question for someone else last year. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I do it. And who answered? Oh, it was me who answered it. So sometimes if you figure out something or you answer a question, you might be doing a favor for your future version of yourself. But yeah, no, the community site's great for a lot more portals questions and things like that. And even I know that I've gone back looking through older posts that kind of were leaving vague answers, or things that maybe there's features that weren't available yet, or things that required a bit of configuration using Liquid or whatever. And I've gone back and answered a few of those, or kind of circled back later and realized that we have a lot of those answers there. Now, then the community site is good for those. Here's my current situation. I need to fix something. And you're right, Colin, the doc site has been, it's been evolving quite a bit. There's still some areas where they describe certain functionality, and you're like, okay, this is great, but how can we apply this to an actual project and things like that?
Yeah.
But I know that, there is, with everything, right, we do have to spend time on learning, and it is a constant of evolution. For myself, I always find that having a project to with some actual problems is always a good way to start learning about portals.
Allows you to experiment and stuff, I think, as well. And And I think experimenting is the way I love learning myself so much. I just try it until I can make it work, or figure out that it can't work that way, and and then I've learned something and perhaps can share that back with everybody as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's always the nice little fist bump in the air when you kind of figure out something or you got something to work. I find with especially like with liquid, because liquid is sort of one of those kind of, it is a markup language. It is specific to portals, but liquid is used in a lot of other places, like originally came from Shopify and things like that. So I find a lot of times I'm seeing something on a non-Microsoft post or site that's using liquid, and I'm kind of curious. I said, okay, is this going to work on the portals or not? And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But that's, again, part of the experimentation. And to experiment, it's really not hard, because if you spin up a 30-day trial, you can provision a portal. And of course, as you guys, everybody knows, you can extend that trial like for another 30 days pretty easily. So it gives you a nice little sandbox to go in and start mucking around and trying a lot of this stuff. And if you blow up your portal, like, no biggie, you can, because it's on a trial, you can kind of refresh it. So yeah, I'm very much with you, Colin, on the whole experimentation. Try it, see what works, see what breaks. If I click this button here, what does this mean, kind of thing.
Yeah, the trials are amazing. I spin them up and down all the time. So even as a partner, having instances, we utilize the trials for a lot of demos with customers, and just like you said, experimentation of things so that you can try stuff out without impacting your actual project, or just having something isolated to yourself at the same time. So
yeah, for sure. Another one. Now I'm not going to completely give away my age, but people can guess that I'm more from a reading a documentation or going through a blog and reading step-by-step instructions. But I also know that the folks that are, in the kind of the, I don't want to generalize the millennials, but a lot of them learn things by watching YouTube. And I definitely don't mind watching YouTube to learn stuff as well, but sometimes I'll find I'm hitting the pause button a lot to try things out.
Hold on, stop for a sec.
My daughter learns how to do a lot of things on YouTube. So I know that another MVP, Eliza Benitez, has a bunch of YouTube videos on portals specifically, and she did a couple recent ones on how to set up the SharePoint site and the Power BI integration. And I've been actually sending these links out to other people that have been asking me about that. So I think that's also a great resource for learning as well, because actually you get a kind of a demonstration and someone talking you through the process. Have you watched any of these YouTube videos, or you have other ones, Colin, that you're aware of?
Eliza's are amazing. I think there's nobody else that can do them like her. And I think what's great about hers is that she brings so much awareness to the feature sets as well. So she's kind of walking everybody through and showing how it works. And I think, yeah, there's definitely this audience that loves to learn that way. So it's quite a good resource. One of the other blogs I like to watch is kind of Nick Haydukes. He was on the show last week. He has some interesting techniques, sometimes kind of figuring out how to hack the portal and make it work in the way that he wants it to. So he has some interesting series on there in terms of exposing certain content or doing certain integrations in ways that you might not have thought of. And I think the techniques he's kind of coming up with are also something you can look to kind of utilize in other ways that is not just the way he's describing it in his blog post potentially. So that's a quite a good resource, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick's posts are great, and yeah, he's got that strong focus on the portals, and developed a few portal tools as well for the XRM toolbox. So I mean, I think overall it's getting, if that question of how do you learn portals a year or two ago was a lot harder to answer than it is now. But there's still some room for improvement there. So I know that there's some initiatives. It's exciting to hear about the new Microsoft Learn site as well, and what that potentially could bring to learning about portals or solving issues and things like that. And of course, even the Microsoft communities like we talked about, and then even within we talked about the CRM UG. The CRM UG, they also have forums as well for their members. But I believe the forums are actually accessible by non-members as well. So I've seen portal questions kind of percolate there. And what's great about the Dynamics communities sites versus some of the community, like, not I think they're both very good resources. The Dynamics UG site has folks that are kind of end customers or administrators or power users, and they're in the trenches, and it's sort of more of a collaborative learning together. There's no kind of this is the way you do it, or it's more of a sharing of, well, this is what worked for us, will that work for you, kind of a mentality there. So I think that's definitely a great resource to get ramped up on this stuff.
Yeah, I'm quite curious to see what happens with Microsoft Learn and them putting Portals content up there. They talked up Microsoft Learn so much at Ignite. So I'm very curious to see if they can get some content up there and it be worthwhile content, because I tried out, I think, the Azure stuff while I was at Ignite on Microsoft Learn, because that was some of the first stuff they had published, and it was a really cool experience to be able to use it in kind of like a guided way with all the virtual resources they have. So it should be interesting to see if they do something for Portals, exactly what they can accomplish on that platform with some sort of guided as-you-go type of experience for that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting times, definitely going forward. So, I mean, I think the good news is for folks that are trying to learn Portals, there's all sorts of content that's coming on the horizon. So, it'd be always another good tools to add to your existing skill set.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So I think we're probably close to time today. So, going forward, Colin, for folks that want to kind of reach out to you or connect with you in the wide world of the web, what's sort of the best way to do that?
I'm a big Twitter user, so I love when people reach out on Twitter. You can also find me on my blog and all my links to the social media on there, so just colinvermander.com. I'd be kind of curious to hear from people what they're interested in us talking about, whether it be the new features, the ins and outs of those, maybe some ALM strategies. I know is a big ask from a lot of people sometimes, so perhaps if people want to write in and let us know where their interests lie in terms of some upcoming content, we can help make that kind of information bubble up to them.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'd be very interested. I think we could have a great discussion on ALM strategies, because that is also another question. I think once people learn the basics of portals and how they work, it's the next step is, okay, how can we do this like in a dev test production environments? Because it is, we do run into some licensing questions around that. We also kind of run in, because we are moving portal data, metadata that's slightly different from solutions. And of course, everything is evolving with the Power Apps and CDS. I was actually in the new Maker experience yesterday, trying to add some entities and fields, and I did revert back to the classic environment. But I also see the potential there that things are definitely evolving. So that's yeah, for sure, folks. If you things that you want us to talk about, we're definitely open to that. I mean, other ideas I've had on, I know the XRM Toolbox has a series of portals tools. I've tried out a bunch, and there are definitely pros and cons to each. Or if you want, we could take the Gus Gonzalez method of podcasts, where we can talk about the top 10 portal tips, or the top 10 portal tips I disagree with, or something like that. That's always a hoot.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we can have Gus on and have him walk us through the tip process. So.
Yeah, maybe that'd be a very interesting episode. I was on with him a few weeks ago, and we had a whole managed versus unmanaged conversation, which got a bit of traction, and we're not going to get into that here today. That's a topic that's been beaten to death. So for those of you who want to reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter as well at @ReadyXRM. And again, if you're interested in learning more about portals, I think both Colin and I we're at various events in the future, and I have some training coming up as well. And so I think there's lots of opportunities for, if you want to learn more about portals, let's try to help you along.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Hopefully the next, I think the next time we're planning on recording, we were going to plan to record directly from Extreme 365 in Austin, and that'll be a good episode as well. And maybe if the CRM Hobbit, Sean Tabor, finds his way out of the snowstorm wherever he's stuck in, then he'll be back with us, and we will be back again for another exciting episode of Refresh the Cache.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right.
This has been Refresh the Cache, the Dynamics 365 Portals podcast from CRM Audio. Check out this and other podcasts at crm.audio. If you have any questions about portals for the team to answer, please send them to voice@crm.audio. You can subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, or any place else to find podcasts are offered. This is a production of Dynamics Podcast LLC.